only win by 2, and Idaho had a chance with a 2-point conversion to tie it up. I don't know. I almost think Idaho, even with their issues going on and their injuries, still looks pretty damn good, or maybe UC Davis is not a top 10 caliber team.
Welcome to the official podcast of FCS Fans Nation with your hosts Kyler Neal, Matthew Frazee, and Jamie Williams.
FCS Fans Nation. Everything seemed to be a go according to plan, as well as that intro phrase, until we all woke up the next morning at 1 a.m. to find out that our beloved Idaho had gone down to UC Davis. A little bit of chaos, a lot of fun from this last FCS weekend. Welcome to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Thank you so much to our FCS Gold members, especially the few of you that subscribed up this week. We hope you are enjoying the Pick'em Challenge and all the benefits. Thanks to those that are liking and subscribed on YouTube and, of course, Apple and Spotify. Kyler Neal, Jamie Williams, Matt Frazee coming to you live here. Quick announcement before we get going. It is with a heavy heart. I hope we keep the subscribers here that I will be stepping away and leaving the FCS Fans Nation podcast next weekend only. I'll be back the week after. But, man, a few people I would have loved to see the reactions for that. I won't be here next week. I will have military drill. We've got some important people going to important places. Got to help with that stuff. So I start these podcasts, guys, as you know. I say, Jamie, how we doing? Kyler, how we doing? So I'm going to take the stage on the intro if you guys are cool with it, because this week coming up is NDSU UND. And here's the reality. I have to steal the opening stage here, because if UND wins and I don't show up on the podcast the day after that happens, I'm going to catch a lot of crap on the page, on YouTube, on FCS Gold. People will text me, "You're weak, you suck, you're worthless. Wow, I guess when you lose to the rival, you just bail." So I just want it to be said now. Have some Uncle Sam obligations, so I won't be on the pod. If the UND Fighting Hawks, who I've given some praise this year, if you come up to Fargo, I should say go down to Fargo, and you beat our ass, congratulations on the win, and I would think a top 3 spot in the FCS rankings. So we've heard it there. I'll have this video clip prepped for when somebody tweets at me, undoubtedly on Monday or Tuesday. But we're going to be talking about that game and some of the other fun ones that occurred and what's coming up. There's a lot of things to expect and get ready for in this FCS season. And let's get into the top 6 topics of the week.
What are FCS fans talking and posting about nonstop? It's time for the top 6 topics of the week.
Now that I've stolen all the thunder, back to the gentlemen who actually make good points and have the facts and don't stink, Jamie and Kyler. We have a great question here to kick things off. Stephen Wagner and Joshua Hoffman are here to start us off, and we're going to be talking about that Idaho and UC Davis game and kind of the impacts and ripples through the Big Sky. Stephen Wagner officially had asked, is Idaho worse than we thought or UC Davis better than we thought? And looking at their schedule, says Joshua, could UC Davis be the team that steals the Big Sky because the others beat each other up? Lots of possibilities here. I will say that before we get into this official, question, we should take a second here to look back on something Kyler Neal said in a previous episode. Let's take a look at a little bit of a flashback if we can.
In those. So Idaho still has to play NAU. I don't know if it's at NAU or at Idaho, but that elevation can be, a game changer, especially with a high-flying offense. Idaho also has to play UC Davis, who has been Idaho's kryptonite of late. I don't think they've beaten UC Davis since they've came back down to the FCS. I could be wrong on that, so this is all just me on the fly. But I think that's been their kryptonite, UC Davis. And UC Davis looks like a very tough team.
UC Davis looks like a tough team, Kyler Neal. Well, sounded pretty good on that prediction. So you get the floor first. Reaction to Idaho and UC Davis, and answers to these questions from Steve and Josh.
Fair enough. I'm never wrong. I mean, that is one thing we've learned. There hasn't been one time I've ever been wrong. UC Davis has been Idaho's kryptonite, but I don't really love this question in the sense of, is UC Davis better? Is Idaho worse? Honestly, in this game, I'm kind of viewing it as the opposite, even though Idaho lost, right? If maybe UC Davis beat a healthy Idaho offense, that's a different thing. But they struggled versus not even like a third string quarterback, right? I mean, Idaho's quarterback play has been horrible. They've had a lot of injuries, but they're down to almost pretty much like a punter. I mean, that's not true. It's a freshman kid from Walla Walla. But if UC Davis is this top 10 team, that they're probably going to be voted. I put them as a top 10 team, but just because they have the wins right now. But I'm not really buying it. I almost have the opposite effect. I mean, Lane Larison looked a little rough. Idaho completely stopped the run. So that was kind of embarrassing. I think with the sacks, they were about 1 yard of play or less than 1 yard of rush. And it was at UC Davis. So when you're playing the third string quarterback, fourth string quarterback, I don't even know now, and you're at home, and you're supposed to have Miles Hastings, who's solid. You're supposed to have Lane Larison, who's was one of the best running backs in the FCS in the preseason. And you already have this historic where you're beating Idaho because you know how Jason Eck plays, and you still only only win by 2, and Idaho had a chance with a 2-point conversion to tie it up. I don't know. I almost think Idaho, even with their issues going on and their injuries, still looks pretty damn good, or maybe UC Davis is not a top 10 caliber team. That's kind of more the lines on what I'm thinking. Now, based off of the second part of the schedule on, does UC Davis, win out, or do they steal the Big Sky Championship? I mean, just kind of like this UC Davis being Idaho's kryptonite. UC Davis has never beat Eastern, and Eastern sucks. But even when we suck, we still tend to beat UC Davis. So they still have to play at Eastern, which, as Montana saw, could potentially be a tough place to play. Then they have to play at Montana. That's a little brutal. They got to play Montana State and then finish the season with Sac State. I mean, I have a hard time thinking UC Davis is going to go through the season being only, 7-1, because that will win you the Big Sky title most likely. I think they're at least dropping 2 or maybe 3 games in the back half of that season. So probably not going to steal the Big Sky. But these are both solid teams, even with the injuries. Yeah.
If Kyler speaks, we shall listen, especially on the Big Sky.
100%.
Oh, Kyler was talking?
Yep, Jamie, I brought you in here. I figured you didn't want to listen to the first part. So now to some real analysis of the game. Jamie Williams, Idaho, UC Davis. What do you think?
Yeah, I appreciate Steven asking the question. Absolutely hate the question. Absolutely. It's just no. Why is it got to be somebody's worse or somebody's better? It was a football game. It was a 2-point game between 2 really good teams. It's both teams are about what we thought they were. Although I do think UC Davis had a better rushing attack than that, but I think it just validates Idaho's rush defense, which we kind of have known all year. It was a good game. It was a great game. It's what you get when you have the top of a given solid conference playing against each other. And it was like college. It was at UC Davis. That's a home game for them. They're up for it. It was a fun game to watch. I was still awake watching a lot of that game, and it was an enjoyable game. I don't think there's anything that says, oh, Idaho's worse now because they lost by 2. Oh, UC Davis beat Idaho by 2. They're awesome. Both teams are pretty good. That's kind of what I knew before. I think we all thought that, and now it was validated. Games can be fun, and you don't have to denigrate one team to push another team up. As far as stealing the Big Sky, I don't love that part either, because how would they be stealing it if they go win it? There's 4 or 5 teams that are really good in the Big Sky that can go win it, and UC Davis is one of them. They're not going to steal it from anybody. They're going to go win football games.
Well, Jamie, what do you think about Idaho now, where they sit in your world? We don't really get to them again until like the quick hit questions at the end. I'm curious for you as a rankings person, and Kyler, jump in as well. What does this do for Idaho with you? It's kind of, if you're UC Davis there fan, you're probably thinking, it sounds like a lot of excuses and reasons. We won the game. Our record's really good. Where's Idaho going to shift? Where's UC Davis going to shift? What's that look like?
I think they both wind up somewhere between 6 and 9. I don't know. It depends on. We'll see what the voters do. I haven't even really started putting mine together to large extent. Obviously, UC Davis will be probably one slot ahead of Idaho wherever I move them around, and they're both will definitely still be in the top 10, right where they belong to be. The season's kind of starting to come into focus, and you saw some other teams handle their business, and a couple teams that didn't, including a team that's a few miles away from UC Davis that did not handle their business. That I'm not sure is actually all that good, to be honest. I probably overrated that team. Maybe they'll come up later. I don't know. I don't remember the questions, but Sacramento State, beat by Northern Arizona, and I'm not going to put down Northern Arizona because they've actually played quite well this year. Just because I don't think Sac State is as good. Northern Arizona is a rankable team right now as well.
Yeah, the Big Sky is shifting around a lot. Any thoughts on that, Kyler? You agree with that kind of ranking range of what we should probably see from them on the top 25?
Yeah, for sure. I think I put them at 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. Now, in the reality, maybe both when you have this QB injury, maybe they're both not top 15 teams. That's where it's kind of like interesting to see, and we'll have to see how they play out against Montana State. But as of right now, they both probably deserve to be in that top 10 slot. I think, like Jamie said, anywhere from 6 to 9, 6-10 is probably fair.
Well, we'll see how it all plays out within the Big Sky. And if they could make those kickoff times just a little bit sooner, I think everybody's sleep would appreciate that, especially Jamie and folks on the East Coast. So a big kickoff, a big game, might feel like one of the biggest ones that has come up this season so far in terms of FCS versus FCS, a storied rivalry going all the way back to when they used to play for a nickel. Well, that's not a thing anymore. Peter Belgardi and Mr. Joshua Hoffman coming in again. Peter says, who gets the nickel trophy back, UND or NDSU? For some context, that's the trophy North Dakota State used to play for. It's in the Bismarck Museum right now. Talk me out of thinking why the nickel trophy game will be a blowout win by North Dakota State, says Joshua Hoffman. I guess I'll take you guys through some of the stats and where we sit a little bit. But as your unbiased Bison admin, looking up the massing ratings, I was surprised because when I looked at North Dakota, I just was like, okay, we have opponents like San Diego. We have Murray State. I know they played Montana, and obviously Wisconsin is nobody to scoff at. But I didn't realize that in terms of the Massey strength of schedule, if you look at those rankings, North Dakota State's number 17, and North Dakota is actually 18 right now. So actually pretty darn close. And then when you look at them offensively, I was like, what's going to be key for either of these teams to win? It's going to be that ground game with the complementary pass, even though Cam Miller is playing Walter Payton style football, right? Well, when you look at the total offense when it comes to the rushing game, rushing total offense, actually, North Dakota State sits number 7, and North Dakota is 17. So again, we're pretty close in that range. The glaring difference here really is, and maybe you can be nitpicky because of FBS opponents and then out of conference weakness, whatever. But North Dakota State is 33rd right now defensively, and UND total defense is going to drop all the way down to 57th. My gut, and I'll say some stuff more on the back end right now, is home field advantage is going to be pretty big, and I don't like UND's slow starts. Now, we kind of got a YouTube comment from a Grand Forks UND fan, respected a lot, but he was kind of like, why don't you ever say something nice about UND? My thoughts here, seriously, if I took all my Bisonhood aside with UND, is I think we've been kind of quite complimentary as they've built up to these chances to be great. Remember the spring season? They were the hot team, the hot hand. They went up to Fargo and they got blasted and annihilated. When they beat North Dakota State last year, we could not have been more complimentary of them. I kind of predict they might beat Montana, which they did this year. But last year, they beat North Dakota State and Grand Forks, kicked the living crap out of them, and they followed up that performance with a 27-0 loss at Northern Iowa. And, that's not good. So I think the question for UND, and I'll get more into the details of this game, just kind of responding to that YouTube comment is, will we see more? Will we see the next step through this game? Back to the specific matchup and this huge top 10 one. How are you feeling about it, Jamie?
I think I can tell Josh why I think NDSU is not going to blow them out because UND, they moved the ball. They ran just yesterday. They ran for 311 yards, which is 7.8 a clip. And NDSU hasn't stopped the run great in a few games. And I think this is one of the, obviously, Colorado notwithstanding, this is one of the better offenses they're going to see right now. So I do think NDSU wins this game. I do not think it's a blowout, but I think it's a comfortable-ish win, 10 to 14 points. That's just kind of where I see it. I think North Dakota is really good. I wouldn't be surprised if they went to Fargo and won the game. I do think if the game was in the Alaris Center that it would be different, and I would almost feel comfortable picking North Dakota. I just think them going to the Fargo Dome has been kind of, I don't know, not to say kryptonite, but they just haven't been. They're not the same team on the road as at home over the last few years, and I think that continues this week. Though I think they're going to put up one hell of a fight. Bo Belquist is almost unstoppable. Between him and Efton Chisholm, they got white receiver locked down pretty good.
Yeah, those boys are balling. And the thing with UND, I'll give them this, is, again, we've talked about this a million times. The team at home in the Alaris Center, comparison on the road, seems to be night and day. And for all the love the Fargo Dome gets, when that Alaris Center is sold out, it is way tighter, a much more confined space than the Fargo Dome. And you put 12,000 people in there, it is like just, it is so noisy and everything bounces off each other, and they can cause chaos in that arena. But UND going on the road and up to the Dome has been brutal for them. I mean, it has been very, very bad unless you're going back to the Klein-Saucer era in the 90s, late 90s. So can they get over that? Is their program ready to come in and just kick NDSU in the teeth, like SDSU has? I don't know. Kyler, how are you feeling about this matchup?
I'm feeling that this is not going to look like a top 10 type of matchup. I think North Dakota is going to get mollywhacked. I think North Dakota State is going to probably beat them by 21. And there's a few reasons why. The main thing is, North Dakota really hasn't played a strong rushing defense at all yet. Maybe Murray State, Montana, I mean, even Eastern kind of ran all over Montana at the end of that game. Their rushing defense looked pretty damn weak, to be honest. So North Dakota has not faced a really strong rushing defense. Now, this North Dakota State's rushing defense doesn't look like, the 2013 to 2018 type of North Dakota State's, but it's still decent. And it's still going to be by far be the best rushing defense North Dakota's seen all season. And then you talk about the quarterback play of North Dakota. So now I don't think they're going to be able to rely so much on the run. And I mean, even though they just put up 70, the quarterback play was awful. When you throw 40%, that's never a good day. I think they've had a couple of games where it's about 40% as a quarterback play. So now you have this offensive juggernaut in North Dakota State where Cam Miller looks like he's finally found his own. He looks unstoppable. They have really good backs. They got really good wide receivers and a strong offensive line. I think North Dakota State's probably going to, score at will, where I think this North Dakota Fighting Hawk offense is going to struggle a little bit because they're not going to be able to rely on the rush as much. They're going to have to try and throw it. And that quarterback has not played the best. That quarterback is very inaccurate. He's about a 50% accurate quarterback. That's not good. I know he has 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's probably going to even out the talk in this one. Is probably going to throw for one TD and maybe get 2 INTs in this game. So I think this is going to be a good old-fashioned butt kicking. I really do. And that does not mean North Dakota's bad. I just think sometimes styles make for matchups. And this is one matchup that North Dakota is going to really struggle to win, especially at the Fargo Dome.
Yeah, it's the mental game is going to, I just really think this will sound biased, but I just can't imagine the 6-year seniors, the cast, NDSU as a program not being ready for this game after they got absolutely embarrassed. Remember, this was the game last year where coaches weren't allowed, and this just doesn't happen. And the captains and the players by themselves held meeting after UND and said, if you want to be here, be here. And that's when NDSU flipped that switch and went on that run. Like, UND embarrassed them. I mean, players, coaches of the past were tweeting and talking about how, like, we need changes within the program. That was like the one thing you don't do is lose to UND. It's going to be tough for Bubba and those boys to come up and repeat it again. And I am actually shocked about North Dakota State right now. And last week must have helped, but being the 28th ranked rushing defense, I thought that was pretty shocking. Illinois State, take it for what it is. They held them to 8 rushing yards. So maybe things are starting to click. We need to see consistency out of that Bison defense. I just blasted it last week, but what if the youth and these things are getting figured out. It's a really scary thought, not for you and only for UND, but for the FCS as a whole. So we'll see how it goes. And again, if I'm gone, blame Uncle Sam, and congrats to the Hawks if you walk away with the W. So speaking of W's, they are coming left and right. And I love how people won't stop asking about this team because they're just dang good and they're so much fun. They make good doctors. So what do you think of Lamar now since they lost to Central Arkansas? Central Arkansas is the team we keep talking about. Any clarity on what kind of team the Cards are, says Jason Plotkin, and is McNeese a top 25 school? So Central Arkansas again gets mentioned, again comes away with another W. And while I'd love to sit here and praise them all day, we'll have time for quick hits. Let's talk about two separate things. Is Central Arkansas, have they made the case for being a top 2 team right now? And then we'll get into Lamar and McNeese. Okay. So let's start with Central Arkansas. Jamie Williams, a top 2 team right now, and or playoff seeding. How high can Central Arkansas go?
They can certainly find their way to the number 2 seed. As of right now, no, they are not a top 2 team. Seeding wise, can they get there? Sure, because they have a really solid chance to have an undefeated record against the FCS. They've got some challenges in their conference schedule. Everybody tends to drop a game in the conference you don't expect, and they're probably no different. But teams in front of them play each other, so that's going to be, that's going to be a little bit to their benefit. But we'll see. I mean, I think they can get to a top 2 seed. I don't feel like they're a top 2 team. They're a top 5 team, top 6 team. I could see them anywhere from probably 4 to 8. That's where the range I see them. I think I'll probably have them around 5 still, but we'll see. We'll see how things roll out when as we go through the season. Let's see. This coming week, Abilene Christian, unless that's their bye week and it's next week or whatever, that's not going to be an easy game for them. Abilene Christian moves the ball well. Maverick MacGyver is playing awesome. But that's going to be a chance for a ranked win for them, most likely. It might wind up being their last chance. Charleston's ranked now, but I don't know that they're going to maintain that. They did not look very good against Southeastern Louisiana. So yes, as far as Central Arkansas, I'm not convinced that they're a top 2 team, but they can make their way to a top 2 seed. But we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. So question for you, Jamie, to bounce back off that. I'll play a hypothetical. You ready? Montana State loses. Okay. Montana State's your 1 seed. They're undefeated.
Okay.
SDSU loses in the Fargo Dome, and then North Dakota State loses at South Dakota. So they each have 1 FCS loss to good teams, and they have FBS loss. And then Central Arkansas here has their resume undefeated to the FCS, all this stuff with their strength of schedule. And no other team is like, they got 3 losses, 2 losses, but this is really the question. Would Central Arkansas be 4, 3, or 2 in that hypothetical if you know Montana State is the 1? Just because, you know what, it's week 7 or 8. Why not play this hypothetical?
Well, it certainly depends on what you tell me South Dakota does, because you just told me that they beat NDSU, right?
Yeah, let's say that they lost to South Dakota State and another team. So like they're like a 3-loss team.
Okay. Yeah. Resume-wise, Central Arkansas is probably going to have an argument for the 2 seed. But my guess is they would get the 3 based off of that scenario. One of the Dakota States probably would wind up with the 2. But I could see they would deserve the 2. I don't know if they would get the 2.
Yeah, strength of schedule would be interesting, and
then that would be the key. How do the other teams in the UAC wind up? Because I'm not sure they're going to give them enough of a push to really force the committee to say, okay, this is definitely the 2 seed.
By the way,
maybe it should be.
By the way, make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. YouTube's where you can watch our mock playoff special live the week prior to the playoff selection show and the selection show. We had over 1,000 people join us live last year to watch the selection. That was pretty darn cool. Tyler, how are we feeling about Central Arkansas? Which, by the way, were questions by Jordan and the Rev, since I read Jason's and the Rev's questions on the next one. And that's the kind of night we're off to, especially with my intro. That's okay. We're going to pick it up from here. Kyler, what do you think?
Central Arkansas looks pretty damn good right now.
it's hard to say if I would be willing to put them as a top 2 team right now, but it's also hard to like look at what they've done and automatically say no, they're not a top 2 team. Their defense has played pretty damn elite. It's been one of the better defenses in the league just when you're watching it. Their offense has been super extremely balanced. Of course, you have Powell, and then of course Big Will over there. You know, he's actually playing a pretty decent season on the quarterback position. So you know, how do you stop this offense? No one's really been able to figure it out that well. It's hard. I mean, again, it's more like the level of competition, but most of this, they're just blowing out their level of competition. And then, you know, Lamar has played decent all year. So this is one of those things where it's, man, just if they had that Arkansas State win, I mean, then it's kind of hard to not put them as the top 2, right?
Yeah.
And we all know they beat them. That's the shitty thing. We all know they beat them. This is one of those things where we all know they beat them, but again, on paper, they did not. So that's a really annoying thing, because if they have that win, how do you not put them at least in the top 3 right now? I mean, you kind of have to. They're dominating everyone. Yeah. It's not really competitive. And then the defense is playing at an elite level. I mean, it is pretty cool to see Powell. I think his worst game, he had like 150 total yards, and it was because they were up by 40. So, right, he probably still could have had another 200-yard game if they wanted. So, man, this is finally, you know, Jamie and I have been kind of harassing this team for a while. And it's, you have the talent. Why do we keep overranking you? You have the talent. Why do you keep overranking you? This is one of those times where, you know, give me a sock, I'll put it in my mouth, because holy crap, they are proving Jamie and I wrong completely in the preseason. They have the talent. They have the coaching. They're executing extremely well. If they get through this schedule and beat Tarleton State, who is looking pretty decent too, Jamie's pissed right now on that one, because they're looking pretty decent too. If they get through there, and you have, like Matt said, the Dakotas all with 2 losses, maybe Montana State winning it all, but they might have a couple losses too. I mean, I would love it if you give them a 2 seed. We've done other injustice before with like Jacksonville State getting a 1 seed before. Why not give Central Arkansas 2? Because again, we know they beat Arkansas State. They should be 12-0 if they go through this schedule. So, man, it's fun to watch. I hope they do it.
And I think the key is exactly what you said. With the schedule they have, if they continue to beat teams like this, like they should, like you play the teams that's in front of you, and if they're not as good, then they aren't. But I think they're in a competitive conference, but they are smoking everybody. If they continue to do that, I don't see how you can't give them the 2. I'm just, it's a wait and see. But let's get past the next game first. Then they've got a little bit of a cruise there for a few weeks, I feel like. But I think they're going to handle ACU myself pretty easily with that run game. And like Kyle said, I've not really been a big McElvain fan. And it's probably my own bias from having watched him just look terrible against JMU. But he's definitely, since he's transferred to Central Arkansas, he's managed that offense well. And I'm not calling him a game manager at all. He's played awesome.
Yeah, Central Arkansas really is playing well. Best running back in the FCS, heck, maybe anywhere. And they've been fun to watch. I will say this just to close it out. If the Big Sky has a 1-loss team like Montana State, and they win the Big Sky, and South Dakota State or North Dakota State sits with an FBS loss, and that's it, then no, they're the 3 seed at best. I think even in that scenario, if they were undefeated and have an FBS win, the strength of schedule will heavily lean on that 1-loss Big Sky or Missouri Valley team. But
while we're talking about the UAC real quick, if you look at the rushing yards in the FCS as of right now, the top 3 running backs as far as yards gained right now are Shunderick Powell, number 1, of Central Arkansas, Targy Lamson, number 2, Southern Utah, and Kayvon Britton, number 3, Tarleton State, all in the UAC. Got some good running backs out there, and I'm going to see 2 of them here in about 6 days.
Insane. They're running like crazy. Well, now on to some Southland sermon stuff that actually wanted to be heard from the last question. But here we go. Now let's talk about Lamar. Now let's talk about McNeese, because Jason Plotkin and the Rev bring these teams up. And there was a little bit of podcast network messaging going on about McNeese as the possibility of a top 25 seed. I'm rocking that gear here tonight. Jamie, what are you feeling about the Cowboys? How are you feeling about McNeese? How are you feeling about Lamar, even though they just dropped the game? These are teams where it's like, do we expect multiple playoff bids from these conferences? We didn't, maybe. How do we feel?
Lamar, I think, is exactly what I thought they were going to be, which is a pretty good and improved team from last year. I think Pete Rosamunder's done a great job so far. I think they're a couple steps away. I don't know that they're quite ready to be a playoff team. I did rank them this past week after a nice win, but they lost to Central Arkansas, which I would have predicted that. It's pretty good. I am impressed with McNeese State. I was talking up their linebackers, and Micah Davies only played half the games. I guess, what did they play? They played 6. He's played 3. He's dealing with some injuries, but they're still playing quite good. And Clifton McDowell has been really good. He has led that offense way better than I thought he would. I thought he was a good player, but he's definitely done a really nice job there. And McNeese is a borderline rankable team. When you look at the rankings right now, I don't know that there are 25 teams that quote unquote deserve to be placed in the top 25, but you got to put 25 in there, and they're in that jumble of teams from about 18 to 40 that you could put anywhere. I don't know that either one of them is a playoff team without winning the conference, though. I just don't know that they're going to be able to get there.
I just love to see McNeese State kind of back. I mean, you're talking about, I think the last real thing most people think about McNeese State, besides these unfortunate circumstances, you know, the flooding and the university issues and all these things, is the year where they missed the playoffs at what, undefeated or with 1 loss? I mean, how many years ago was that? I mean, way long. We're talking a long, long time ago. And so I just think it's really cool that that fan base has something to cheer for. And that has nothing to do with these questions, but just a cool thing. Kyler, how are we feeling about the Southland here? How are you feeling about, I mean, we want to pick Incarnate Word. That's what everyone wants to talk about, but they got some real competition here for a conference title.
I mean, the Southland does seem better than maybe we all thought it was going to be. It seems like, you know, they got all a little bit better. No one really got worse. So that's kind of the cool thing about the Southland. At least it seems like from top to bottom, everyone improved a little bit. But now I'm also starting to think the only reason why we're talking so high about the Southland right now is because for some reason 2 of their top upper echelons beat a really bad Weber State. I mean, when you think of it that way, maybe just Weber State sucks. Maybe the Big Sky sucks. I mean, when you look at the Big Sky at a conference schedule, they didn't play extremely well across the board. So now we're saying, McNeese State, they probably deserve some rankings. But they lost to Charlton, and they beat Weber. And Weber, again, not looking great. We were talking about Lamar deserves ranking because they beat Weber. But then they got smoked by Central Arkansas. Maybe it's just Weber's not that good. And maybe we shouldn't rank any of them. That's kind of where my head's turning is, are they good? Or are we just over-validating because they beat a Big Sky and the Big Sky looks kind of bum? They look kind of ridiculous right now. So that's where I'm kind of like having a little like split, because I do think all the teams have leveled up a little bit, but I don't know if we're seeing a top 20 team or if we're seeing just, instead of bottom 50, maybe they're all kind of creeping along that 35 line. I think we're going to learn a lot this week. I think Lamar is going to play SFA. SFA has some talent. That could be an interesting one where we really go, okay, Lamar, maybe they are a top 25. Maybe they're on that cusp, or maybe SFA beats them, and that's kind of who I'm betting on too. I think SFA is going to beat them, and then they were completely out of the top 25. But I like seeing McNeese continue to rise up, because this was a Southern power for a long time. They were always a really strong program. They have great facilities. So it'd be cool to see them kind of up at that, Southland top dog. I think it would be important for the Southland if they had like a McNeese State running the show. I think that would be pretty solid. So I'm rooting for the Southland. Maybe they'll be that Southern Conference that really picks up all the slack and continues to get better every single year. They're real only true conference where they're all close together, which is cool, right? And maybe the Ivy League, I guess. But like, who cares about the Ivy League? The Southland is doing it the traditional way. So is the SoCon. So it'd be cool to see those teams rise up. But I don't know. I think we might be over-validating.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for this conference to get multiple playoff spots, but it is cool to see the competition they got going right now. It'll be fun to see how it all plays out. And yeah, again, shout out to McNeese because I just think that's such a cool story as they're starting to turn things around at their program.
The thing is, they're going to beat each other up.
Yeah.
And, you almost want, if you want the best opportunity for two bids, you almost want Incarnate Word to win out because they already have 2 losses, Southern Illinois and South Dakota State. So that doesn't bode well for that conference. So if they win out and maybe, McNeese is, 10-2, maybe they can actually pull off a second bid. That'd be the goal.
Very cool. We will see how it plays out. And you know what? A team that has not been mentioned a lot. I think we just have been completely silent on this squad. So Kevin Coles is going to save the day today because undefeated 5-0 Mercer, but still might not be a top 10 ranked team. I think they were 12th last week. Correct me if I'm wrong. What is their regular season and seed potential? Okay. So now we have 5-0 Mercer in a SoCon that doesn't look super strong right now. Doesn't look as impressive as what we thought going into the regular season. Kyler, how are you feeling about Mercer? The recruiting talent is taking over, buddy. What do you think about these Bears?
I think that defense is playing exceptionally good. I still want to see them play, a decent program. I mean, I know they beat Chattanooga, and Chattanooga only had, 3 points, and that's where that defense is just phenomenal. But then, Mercer was only held to 10. I wonder if there was a stronger offense, if they would have been able to, maybe pull off the win against Mercer. But right now, it is kind of unfair. Mercer is probably on the outside looking in. I hope they get a top 10. When I was doing my top 25 today, I went all the way to 12 before I had Mercer, and then I stopped what I was doing. I went, that's not that fair. I was like, let me reevaluate it. But also, I couldn't put them in my top 10, which sucks. And maybe that's called bias. Maybe it's because, Kevin Marshall has just, drained so much of my brain where I got to penalize the SoCon for no reason. So I apologize on that, but I put him just right outside my top 10. I couldn't justify it, even though that defense is playing elite. I want to see what they do, against a top 25 teams. I don't have Chattanooga in my top 25. I thought they were super overranked in the preseason. I mean, they probably deserve some top 10 love. That defense is so legit. I just want to see that offense move a little bit better consistently.
If 5-0 is nothing to squawk at. And yeah, my Wofford Terriers gave them some love early. They came up short here in this game. Didn't really look all that impressive. But the committee's going to look at ranked wins at the time. We talked about this on the last podcast. And Wofford sat there at number 23 this last week. And congratulations, Mercer. Wofford's probably never making the playoffs. And they got the ranking they deserved at the time. But that's 2 now for Mercer. And they're running. Jamie, you got some grins to you. I'm excited to hear your take. You looked excited for this question.
Yeah, I like this one. It's there. Gosh, they're right there on the precipice of the top 10. And I think I'm going to have them at 11. And it's not, like Kara said, it's not fair. I'm just looking at it. I think I'm going to have them at 11. I don't know.
Always a bridesmaid, Mercer.
Yeah.
Kevin got us good.
I think there's going to be a lot of top 10 love for them. I look at what's in front of them, and I don't know if I can jump them over all those teams. I mean, I can jump. They were 13 for me last week, which means I got to find 3 teams to jump them over. So
Sac State easily.
Sac State's one of them. So I got to find 2. But jump them over.
Idaho?
Probably not. Probably not, because Idaho still has the same number of ranked wins as Mercer.
Where do you have Montana? 15?
Montana, the top 10. That might be a team.
That could be.
That might be the one that could slide a little bit. Maybe Montana goes to 11, and then they can pass Villanova for sure. Not impressed with them at all.
Do it.
We'll see. As you can tell, I haven't really put my top 25 together for this week because I've been kind of evaluating things throughout the day, looking back at things that happened yesterday and all that. So yeah, we'll see when it comes out. Look for that on X, on FCS Nation Gold, and on the regular FCS Fans Nation page. By the way, if you're on FCS Fans Nation Gold, guess what? I post all 127 if you really want to know.
Yeah, Jamie will post 127 teams every week, his rankings, if you're an FCS Gold member. By the way, just as like a stats voter, that is work. Jamie, would they be the 1 seed if they were undefeated?
No.
Let me ask you a question.
That was a trick question. It was a trick question, by the way. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see why.
Rebuttal, Jamie.
You're sure if they're undefeated.
They beat Alabama.
You're sure if they're undefeated, they shouldn't be the 1 seed.
Yeah, they probably won't still be the 1 seed.
They do play.
Jamie,
Alabama,
how much
folks.
does Mercer have to pay you to jump into your top 5? Because you're going to Vegas next week, and you can double up real quick.
If somebody on Mercer will donate for $250 to Alex's lemonade stand, and tag it to tag FCS Nation Radio 1, tag me, tag FCS Fans Nation. You can buy the vote. Sure, why not? No, just kidding. Nobody buys my damn vote, but still donate to Alex's lemonade stand.
You heard it there. That's a trick.
I thought you were about to get some NCA.
Yep, now we're sued. You can't buy Jamie Williams' vote. Not a chance. But you should put money into charity. It's an important part of who we are here at FCS Fans Nation. Thanks to Jamie, Rev, and everybody else for all they're doing for the lemonade stand. Rev has had a lot of questions tonight. He might have a lot of answers next week with me not being here. And that'd be pretty sweet, huh? All right, guys, final one here. This will be a fun question to end the top 6. This is something we've kind of just avoided, to be honest. But Kyler Elliott, an amazing FCS Gold fan. Does the domino effect of the Pac-12 and Mountain West reconstruction feel even more real for FCS teams to be targeted? Here we go. Realignment, the game that never stops. Sacramento State, who got blasted and stinks by NAU. They want to be in the Pac-12, so they're announcing stadiums. UC Davis has had talks of things. We know the Dakotas and Montanas are monitoring the situation. You know, SFAs, Tarleton States with CUSA. There's lots of things that are happening. Pac-12, Missouri, Mountain West are currently just kind of split when they should be one. Kyler, you really seem to be a voice of reason in this from the FCS standpoint, not to take away from Jamie, whose team did make the jump, but let's get that perspective first. What do you think about what FCS teams could be targeted and where this thing is going?
I mean, definitely there's going to be some FCS teams that end up making the jump. This whole thing just, the Mountain West poaching, the Pac-12 poaching Mountain West teams. It was good for business for the Pac-12 to stay relevant, but now that does leave Mountain West trying to get something. Now, it's unfortunate because the Mountain West still wants to be viewed as this, top tier G5, program. So you either can go after top tier FCS programs or continue to go after other G5 teams from Conference USA, from the MAC. I mean, it looks like they were going after a few interesting teams. So there's going to be a trickle-down effect. It just depends on what region is actually going to be affected the most to get that trickle-down effect, because I don't think Conference USA is going to go after any West Coast teams. I think if the Mountain West decides to poach and raid Conference USA, we're going to see the Tarletons move up. We're going to see, programs like that actually have an opportunity to move up. If the Mountain West goes, you know what, we're going to build it like we did in the day, back when, the WAC was probably better than the Mountain West, and we're going to go after some FCS programs. Now you have a plethora of, I think, actual Mountain West G5 ready programs that have an opportunity to make that jump, and who would with an invite, with the Dakotas, the Montanas. UC Davis is building a 30,000 seat stadium. That's pretty impressive. Sac State is building a 25,000 seat stadium plus a new basketball arena as well. So they are very vocal. Those two teams, I think, make a lot of sense to move up for the area, for the region, for recruiting, for the geography, and just the resources that those two schools bring. And they're giant, massive schools of 30,000 and almost 40,000 kids. So, those are big programs, and they could easily make the jump if they got an invite. I just don't know what the Mountain West is going to do. Are they going to go after Conference USA teams to try and keep we're not adding FCS, or are they going to be smart and actually go, there's some FCS programs that have just been held down because of their regionality. There's not a lot of West Coast conferences. There's multiple who can make the jump and dominate this conference, but we got to give them an opportunity. So that's where I'm a little torn. We're probably going to see 5 FCS teams, maybe get an invite, maybe 3 to 5. I just don't know which region they're actually going to come from. If it's going to be deserving or if it's going to be geographic reason.
Yeah, if you're a betting person, don't bet on the northern Hawaii, that is the Dakotas and Montanas, who have the talent. I don't know. We'll see. Jamie, how are you feeling about this? Your Dukes are in a perfect situation. Some teams have landed in perfect spots. Others, we're not really sure why they did it. But tell me how you're feeling about FCS teams that could be targeted with this fallout.
To be honest, don't really care. Conference realignment does not excite me at all. I
Not
kind of hate it.
anymore.
I didn't really care when it was us. If it's some, I said, let me know when we get an invite, and we got an invite. I was happy to go to the FBS. Don't get me wrong, very happy. It's where we need to be, but it's not something I follow. I just don't care that much. It doesn't take up that much room in my brain space. I know a lot of people love it and want to look through and analyze. It's just not my thing. I don't care.
I would have to say, to show a little bit of passion care, I've been one who said I want North Dakota State to jump. I just think it's natural progression for the program. But I think that in terms of, I think if the CUSA loses a few teams like New Mexico State, some of these others, I think that they will go with regional FCS teams. Junk is a bad term. I don't mean it this way. But, like to say that Kennesaw is more of an FBS program or Sam Houston than North Dakota State is just not true. Or then Montana is just not true. But I see them going towards Tarleton, your Stephen F. Austin, something like that within the region around what they are, way more than taking a chance on one of the Dakota schools. Nobody wants to travel to Fargo. Nobody wants to make that effort. Nobody wants all those sports to be involved. So my whole thing is someone needs to be on desperate deathbed to consider the Dakotas, in my opinion. And I think even Montana's could get a nod with the Mountain West quicker than North Dakota and South Dakota State. And that's from someone who really would love to see it. And I think even if the MAC gets rated, they'll find other ways to go. I think FCS programs are bound to go. I just don't think it's going to be the ones that people probably are cheering for. Like, why would you not want Dakotas and Montanas to go if you were sitting there as Illinois State and some of these other programs that have just been itching, SoCon teams and others that want to go win national titles and get to the semifinals again? So we'll have to see how it goes. It's been a fun ride so far. Something to definitely bet on, and we will always bet when we are involving tacos.
Taco King, coming to you from bright and sunny Fargo, North Dakota. It's time for a taco bet, and time for you losers to pay up.
Taco bet time. Okay. Had a great question here from Mr. Jordan John. Jordan says, when's the last time all 4 Dakota schools were in the top 10 FCS rankings? Makes for some fun matchups the next 4 weeks. I think this is probably the only time in FCS history that we've seen it. I did some deep dive at least into last year. That seems lazy, but I couldn't think of another time where South Dakota and North Dakota would both be so good they'd hit top 10. 2023 was NDSU and UND's fault for not all 4 being ranked. Because when you look back on the week to weeks, and you can look this up on Wikipedia, like in the polls, like week 12, South Dakota State, South Dakota 1 and 3, North Dakota State at number 9, and then UND had dropped down to like 14, 15. And then the week prior, 2 weeks prior, North Dakota State was dropped out. And then 2 weeks before that, UND was the one dropped out. There was 3, but there was never 4 because they were beating each other or losing to some team. So I don't think it's ever been done, to answer your question, Jordan. I hope I get corrected if I'm wrong. But here comes the taco bet, gents. How many Dakota schools finish in the top 6 of the rankings on the final poll after Frisco? There's a top 25 released after Frisco. Over, under 2.5. So this question is pretty simple. Typically, the 8 quarterfinal teams are the ones that get ranked. Will UND and South Dakota, because we anticipate SDSU and NDSU getting quarterfinals, will they make the quarterfinals, or will they be good enough to be ranked as one of the top 4 of the losers if they don't get to the semifinals? That's kind of the question here. Kyler, what do you think? Over, under 2.5 for the Dakota schools as a whole.
Man, this is the first year where it makes it a little more plausible when they're actually seeding correctly and not just going regional, because now you could actually seed them correctly, and maybe I'll meet in the semis, which could be wild. I'm still going to go on the under. I think North Dakota is probably going to lose a few games, and I think South Dakota is as well. So I think it's going to be 2, but man, that third team is very interesting. I think could happen for sure. I'm not buying 4, but I'll still go under at 2.
Yeah, getting to the quarterfinals. You're asking 3 of them to get there, and then the voters to like how they perform.
Well, I think each one of them can get to the quarters. It's just they might not get past the quarters. And that would put them at 7 and 8.
True. It depends how you're ranked, right? That's the performance thing. Jamie, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
Yes.
I'll go over. I think, like you said, I think there's a very solid chance that those 4 teams make up half of the quarters. Like Kyler said, seeding 16 teams, you're not going to have NDSU going to Montana State like that when they, in the second round kind of thing. They should have met in the quarters. So yeah, I'll go over. I think South Dakota's not getting enough love.
Wow, Jamie, you're just stealing my script. That's how I feel. I think South Dakota is being viciously underappreciated right now. And it's not the spring season, so UND is not getting to the quarterfinals. Come on, it's rivalry week. I get one, don't I? The biased Bison gets one shot on this podcast.
And I went back through 2016 for this, and I cannot find an instant where all 4 were in the top 10. I found plenty of instances of 3 until this year. I mean, I've got them all 4 in the top 10 coming into this week. So, hell, I had them all in the top 7. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but before that, going back to 2016, cannot find an instance of all 4.
That's a big thing for UND this week. Like, you could lose and still be a very highly ranked team. It's going to be interesting to see how they perform this week. All right, that will end our taco bet. This weekend can't get here quick enough. So that brings us on to some quick hit questions.
Just because your question is answered quickly doesn't mean we don't care. It's time for this week's quick hit questions.
Off we go. Quick hits. My favorite segment like the rest of them. And Kyler Neal, we will start with you. Mr. Eric Kletke, Montana State fan, incredible human, and FCS Gold member. Is NAU a possible playoff contender with their dominant win against Pac-12 Sac State?
Sure. Yeah, I guess they would be a playoff contender right now, but we're only halfway through the season, and let's see what else happens. This is only the first week of Big Sky play. And I don't think anyone is that elite, maybe outside of Montana State right now. So anything can happen. But like I said a few weeks ago, they look frisky. They look a little, better than usual. So potentially, yeah.
Yeah, they look good. We need to use frisky more for teams that can make Frisco. I don't think we've done that enough.
Shirt.
Shirt. Yep, shirt time. Jamie, which coaches are on the hot seat? Joshua Hoffman, who is already worried? I struggled with this question, to be honest. I was thinking about expectations of the season and stuff, and I'm like, ugh. I'm like, Youngstown, maybe? I don't know. What do you think? God, there's
it's the biggest one is just glaring, and it's not the UIW on Kyler's shirt, but it is another team that has red and black. Aaron Best, that seat's getting real hot under his ass. The other one that I came up with, and I don't know that it's that hot, but they haven't had as good a start as Tony Trisciani at Elon. I thought they'd be a lot better, and they just haven't been. But the answer to this question is Aaron Best, and I think EWU fans would say he'd best be gone after this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't be that close, and there's been some calls for a while. So, well, best of luck to the coaches. Unintended. How impressive was North Dakota's win? Evan Wilson wants to know. Evan, there's 2 sides of the coin here, I think. The nickel, I should say. North Dakota just put up 70 points like this was a basketball game. It was an absolute annihilation by the end of it. They destroyed San Diego as well when they were playing them. But, like, the slow starts, it's the only thing. It's nitpicky. But I'm like, why are these slow starts? You had to come back to beat Montana. Why are you going down to Murray State? Why are you going down to San Diego? So it's a slow start complex for me. Can't have that in Fargo. We'll see how it goes. And I'll take the next one here. Asa Llewellyn has a question. Thoughts on NDSU's defense after the conference opener? Yeah, I want to see consistency. I will say that, Asa. I'll say it with everybody. But good God, as a Bison fan, that was what we thought Tim Paulsek and the crew was going to bring. Those Illinois State defensive linemen, and they were big boys, were just getting pushed backwards. 8 rushing yards. They weren't missing tackles. It was the first drive, 3 and out, super quick. I mean, it looked vicious. It looked like they went back to the drawing board, and Tim Paulsek had said that. He said, We're going to look at things defensively with Coach Olson. Not that he was getting in his Cheerios, just that we're going to put players in the basic spots to execute in their positions. Sometimes it's better to make it more simple and basic and just attack what you know than develop all these complex schemes. So it looked good, but we'll see if it holds up against UND, an incredible offense. Jason Plotkin wants to know, Jamie, how much parity do we have in the SWAC West? Is it still too early to determine, or do we have 3 or 4 teams that could win the division? We have teams that not really, we don't have anybody like 4-0 or blowing anyone out of the water. What do you think about when you look at the SWAC West?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wide open. And I'm glad you went to me on this one because it gives me the opportunity to talk about the really fun game I watched a chunk of last night, which was 5 overtimes between Prairie View A&M and Grambling. That game was fun because teams were making plays. Grambling made a couple of plays late to get that game tied that were just phenomenal throws, good catches. I enjoyed that. I think they're 2 of the teams that will be in the race this year. I mean, Alcorn State looks good. Southern has looked good. Texas, it against relative competition, of course. But I've enjoyed watching some of those games. Shout out to Coach Fred, Alcorn State. I'd love to see them get it done. But yeah, I mean, the SWAC West is wide slam open, and I think it's going to come down to the wire. And if you want a lot more on SWAC and the MEAC, tune into the Blue Bloods with Zach and Coach Fred. They're really some of the better guys on this. There's a lot of other good HBCU podcasts that'll cover it way better than I can. But SWAC looking pretty exciting from the West this year.
Yes, it is. Jason, thanks for the HBCU question. We appreciate it, sir. Lee Turnbog says, what is your thoughts on targeting obvious late person fouls or hits? Should there be different levels like we see in basketball with levels of technicals? Interesting question, Kyler. What do you think about that one? The never-ending question of the late hits and targeting.
They have kind of different levels if it's, 15 yards, or if it's actually you're getting booted out of the game. But targeting in general, it seems like every single game, anytime we see a targeting hit, it is completely different than what you expect a targeting to be. And I don't think there's any real answer on what is a true targeting, because we see it all the time where they're getting flagged for targeting that's not targeting, or they are and they don't get flagged. So I don't know. But I do like kind of the idea of having a tiered system for a foul, depending on how dangerous that hit is or how intentional it is. I don't hate it. Yeah, let's do a flagrant 1, flagrant 2. Let's have fun.
Yeah, if you can structure it better. I think that's what people are looking for, right? People just want structure and they want consistency with it. So
Jamie hates it. Look at him go. He wants to talk about it. So let's give Jamie the floor. I see him, just.
Yeah, I don't like to tier it, because then it's too gray area. It's gray enough as it is, not 100% knowing what targeting looks like. Because there's, like you said, there's been so many times where I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's going to be upheld," and then they say, "Oh, it's not targeting." But if you say that it's targeting, it's a 15-yard penalty. It's an ejection. Then you're suspended for a half. If it's in the first half, you're out the rest of that game. If it's in the second half, you miss the first half of the next. I don't think I want to change that, because the more ambiguity of that you introduce, then there's just more room to play with, and I don't love that.
All right, we'll see if the NCAA or whoever's in charge, I guess, figures it out one day. Alex Kenko wants to know, replace the nickel trophy. We shouldn't have to and should be able to reintroduce it, but humor me. Oh, man, the nickel trophy. If you've never seen it, it's a buffalo nickel. It's giant, it's massive, and it has a buffalo on one side and it has the Sioux head on the other side, the former mascot of North Dakota. And it is retired now, is one of the most legendary trophies for those schools that are about 70 miles apart. Replace it. Alex, I've said this for years. I've got a lot of hate for it. I would honestly just do Fighting Huck on one side, Bison on the other side. I'd choose a dime. I'd choose a penny. I'd choose
inflation?
A quarter. Yeah, inflation or something, we're on the next level. So I'd do a dime or a quarter, and I would just replace the Sioux head with the Fighting Hawk head, and I would roll with it. And, they can go for the quarter. They can go for the dime or whatever it is. So
I would do a Canadian citizenship application. Loser gets sent to Canada. I think that'd be ideal.
Well, Dakota is all Canada. We're trying to annex them over, right?
Exactly.
It's too good.
We'll be with Simon Fraser, you loser.
Alex, I'm not creative with that at all. It's never going to be, whatever they come up with that's new. It's going to be tough to beat the nickel, tough to beat the rock. That thing's pretty cool. I'm sure it'll be something history-based. Corey Wellman, here you go, Kyle. How much do records matter when it comes to rivalry games? Eastern always plays lights out against the Grizz, especially at home. The Inferno is definitely a huge home field advantage. Is Eastern as bad as we think, or do they just show up for the rivalry? What do you think about Eastern, the rivalry, your Redfield? What do you got?
I mean, it's not always close. I think Montana beat us by like 60 last year, so that was fun. Yay. But I mean, yeah, when you're kind of playing a rivalry game, you have to throw records out a little bit to a part because, you know, it does mean a little bit more for the players. Now, how good is Eastern? How bad is Grizz? Vice versa. I mean, Eastern is 3 plays away from being 4-1 with their only loss being an FBS team. But unfortunately, those 3 plays don't go our way, and we are 1-4, which means we're pretty shitty. So, I mean, Eastern has a lot of talent to where they can play with a lot of top-tier teams, but they are also some of the worst execution teams out there, some bad play calling. So they can also lose to everyone like we have seen already this year. So, yeah, I mean, Eastern sucks. Rivalries are fun. Made a fun game.
We'll see what happens next year with the Eagles. But sorry again for your losses, Kyler. Favorite color scheme on a cat? You know, at the end of these quick hits, guys, if you're a loyal listener, you listen to these, we appreciate that you've made it this far in the podcast every week. We always will answer any question, even if it's not football related. Joshua Hoffman, FCS Gold member, SDSU fan, amazing human. Favorite color scheme on a cat? I like a good orange cat. He even had a photo of this cat. What do you think, Jamie? Around the horn for this one.
There's no such thing as a good cat, so no colors. Screw cats.
Kyler, what do you have?
There's some pretty cool cats out there. No pun intended. I like the classic where it's, you know, just that gray and white, you know, stripe. Looks pretty cute. So, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, I think cats are cute. So any color.
I gotta go with Jamie. The coolest cats I met, people tell me they're like, yeah, it's almost like my cat's cool. It's like a dog. I'm like, yeah, there's a reason that it's cool because it's like a dog. But I will say this, there is a superior color scheme of the cat, the one I respect, Joshua. Yellow and gold on a lion or orange and black on a tiger. Those would be your best color schemes and the only cats I would look at.
Garfield and Heathcliff are cool, though.
Garfield's cool. Respect to the lasagna.
There's some cool cats, man.
Cool cats.
I'll never go out of my way and buy a cat, but they're cute, so it is what it is.
Yeah. Cat or dogs? We'll debate it in Frisco in person.
100%. That's not even over. Just dogs.
Guys, the Rev takes us out with the final 2 questions here. Best horror movie. You know I love Halloween. Preston Adams knows this. What do you got, Kyler? Best horror movie? Scary movie?
Eastern Washington football 2020 2024. I'm probably going to steal Matt's, but I actually kind of like the It movies.
Oh, It movies are so good. Yeah. So good. They were there. You had the emotional, heartfelt in there. What do you got, Jamie? Scary movie guy? If you are.
I mean, I don't mind them, but it's not. I don't see a lot of movies anymore, really. I don't go out of my way. I don't know. I mean, Cujo was always fun back in the day. When I saw that when I was like 8 or 9, probably shouldn't have, but I did. That was good. I liked that one. Chucky, the original Chucky from the 80s, that was pretty awesome. Also saw that when I was probably way too young to be watching Chucky. But yeah, let's go back that far. That's what I like.
Those are pretty solid. It in terms of pure horror, hold your breath. I don't know how you beat The Conjuring. The Conjuring was phenomenal, and I bet there's a lot of people watching scary movies who go, "Oh yeah, that The Conjuring is so good," and it springboarded so much. If you've never seen it though, kind of like the It movies, where there's the emotional in it. In my opinion, the greatest TV series and arguably the greatest television movie thing that's ever been done. It's on Netflix. It's a 10-episode miniseries, The Haunting of Hill House.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Yep. That first season was so good.
Yeah.
That is pure horror because you're like, shouldn't something be happening? And then for 8 minutes and still nothing shows up. But there's so much emotion to it. You're
ready to jump at all times.
And the whole time, yet you find yourself crying at the end because of where it goes. It's a beautifully well done thing. So, all right. And then best metal album, says the Rev. Oh gosh. Well, you won't find a lot of these at the Jazz Fest, but I'm going to say this because I discovered this about our good friend Ben. from SDSU's podcast. Make sure you guys check out Jackrabbit Illustrated. We became fellow metalhead friends through this. So I'm just going to go metalcore. I'm sorry, Rev, but like when you go to A Day to Remember, Homesick album, Bring Me the Horizon, Sempiternal, Parkway Drive, Horizons, you start hitting that sort of stuff. August Burns Red, those sort of albums, they're all elite in my minds. I'm saying this because I'm excited now for the DMs and the instant messages I'm going to get of fellow metal and metalcore fans. You guys ever listen to a metal album, or what did you, Jamie? What would be the defined metal of your era?
I will go with the Metallica live album that they performed with the orchestra. I think it was the San Francisco Orchestra. One of one for me. I love that album. I like Metallica a lot. So yeah, that would be it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, talk about setting the standard. And when they incorporate orchestra, it's so cool.
Yeah,
Kyler, you got one?
Yeah, if we were going to go, actual just metal albums, because I'm not a big fan of a lot of the new age of metal like Matt is. So I would say, my metal stops kind of where Jamie was, beginning with, Metallica, but the Black Album, Metallica, the album. I mean, that's probably one of the greatest just rock albums of all time, in my opinion. It's a good road trip album. Dad and I would always do it when we're going to Mount St. Helens. We listen to the whole album back to back to back to back. Wherever I may roam. I mean, that's just a fantastic song. So yeah, I'd have to say, Metallica.
Metallica is a tough one to beat. There's some
Black
Slipknot
Album,
ones you could throw in there. Iowa, a few of those. Yep, pretty solid.
No Rammstein?
Rammstein, yes. I mean, if you're selling out stadiums that big, I mean, even to this day, you've definitely made it. Probably put out some pretty big albums. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Another solid episode. And I got to tell you what, gentlemen, this weekend, it's starting like things are about to build. I'm really, really excited to see where this weekend goes. I think the Valley and the Big Sky, I think we've been kind of repetitive a little bit on the thoughts and the predictions, but the conference schedules are about to really reveal who's real and who's not. Jamie, I don't know if I'm going to give you the final moment because I can give you a break, but some thoughts as we end the FCS Fans Nation podcast this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for conference play. I probably also will not make it next week. I'm going to try, but I don't know that I'm going to make it. I will be actually FCS Fans Nation on the road. I will be out at Tarleton State at Southern Utah on Saturday. So I'll be flying back to Vegas Sunday evening. So we'll see. I don't know that I'm going to make it. Don't even land till 8 o'clock local. But I'm really, really looking forward to getting out there, seeing a couple of good teams play ball. 2 of the top 3 running backs by total yardage so far in the FCS. I'm going to spend some time at Southern Utah, so I'm really looking forward to that. So that's my weekend next week. So might not see me next week, but we'll be back better than ever after that. But yeah, that's what I got now.
Dang. Well, October 5th or 6th is just a rough one for us. Kyler, I'm gonna give you the final floor. You're gonna have to hold down the fort, and Rev, prep yourself. Probably getting a call. Maybe we'll sneak someone else in there. You never know. Kyler, your final thoughts before you run the show for the next week.
I think it's pretty jacked up that you two leave me on my birthday weekend. I see how true friends really are. A whole bunch of assholes. I hope, you're loving fighting for our country, Matt. Good job being a real American. I appreciate you. And Jamie, I like football, so I'm going to go leave Kyler and go watch a football game with my buddy who's a coach. I hate y'all. But I'm glad you guys are doing real stuff with your life because I took out a day already, so it's only fair you guys do it also. I think I got an idea. We'll probably bring in a couple people, maybe some that you know, maybe some that you don't. I got a few ideas up my sleeve. Now I just actually got to put in the work and invite them to an episode. So we'll see what happens.
Heck yeah. I'm excited to listen to it. Should be fun. All right, FCS Fans Nation, make sure you hit like, subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, Apple. Leave us that 5-star review. Appreciate everyone who's joined FCS Gold so far. The bracket challenge is coming up. You only have to subscribe if you haven't subscribed to FCS Gold, 99 cents a month. Just make sure you're subscribed sometime within the first 3 weeks of November. It's crazy, but that is happening soon to try to win the $50 competition. And thank you so much to everyone who's joined so far. We appreciate the support, and we hope you enjoy all the perks that it's given you. FCS Fans Nation, enjoy the games next week. Enjoy Kyler and the crew that's coming up, and we appreciate you always joining us. Have a good one. Boom.
Thank you for listening to the FCS Fans Nation podcast. Make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe on YouTube. To listen ad-free and enjoy many other perks, join FCS Gold for only 99 cents a month by using the link in the description below. Make sure to follow FCS Fans Nation on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening to the premier podcast for FCS football.
Grab a brewski.
I haven't had one beer on this whole podcast.
Shouldn't have messaged you guys saying I was ready.